In the Old Testament, as a tribute to God, a burnt offering was required. This sacrifice acted as a covering for the sin of the people at that time. But thankfully, this is no longer necessary because Jesus died for us. He made the ultimate sacrifice so that we don't have to. So why in Romans 12 does it say, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." Because of his ultimate, once and for all sacrifice on the cross, the Old Testament sacrifices became obsolete and are no longer of any effect. For those who are believed and saved by faith, the only acceptable worship is to offer ourselves completely to God. I want to draw out three things briefly from this passage. So what does it mean by our bodies? How can we be a living sacrifice? And how can we live holy lives? So why does God want our bodies? Perhaps a question that some of us might ask is, why does God want my body? I'm too short. I'm too tall. I wear glasses. I'm too clumsy. I'm too old. The Old Testament required perfect, flawless animals. But God isn't looking for perfect bodies like those that we might see on social media. But that kind of misses the point. The sacrifice of our bodies to God is not a sacrifice for sin. That's already been done in the sacrifice of Jesus, which is why all our bodies, whatever they look like, are acceptable. The Apostle Peter makes this clear in 1 Peter 2:5. You also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. And that's the key. It's all through Jesus Christ. That's what makes it possible. But again, we might miss the point. The offering is not about our bodily looks, but about our bodily behaviour. The body is not significant because of the way it looks, but because of the way it acts. The body is given to us to make the visible beauty of Christ. God wants visible, lived out bodily evidence that our lives are built on his mercy. So how do we live this out? So that reading, present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. There are places in the world where just being a follower of Christ could end in imprisonment or even death. But Paul in this passage has in mind a lifestyle. It's your living, what you do on a daily basis, that is the act of worship. And just as worshippers in the Old Testament denied themselves an earthly treasure, it could be a sheep or a cow, and they carried these sacrifices to the altar of blood and fire, so we deny ourselves some earthly treasure or ease or comfort and carry ourselves, our bodies, for Christ's sake, to the places and relationships and crises in this world where mercy is needed. So to come to the third and final point, how can we live holy lives? Present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. In Romans 6, Paul writes, "Do not offer any part of yourself to sin as an instrument of wickedness, but rather offer yourselves to God as those that have been brought from death to life, and to offer every part of yourself to him as an instrument of righteousness." So present a living, holy body to God means give God every part. Your eyes, your tongue, your hands, your feet. Give your body to do righteousness, not sin. A body is not
holy because of what it looks like or what shape it is, but because of what it does. When we choose to do and say things that are pleasing to God, it shows God's worth in your heart. So what can you do today to be a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God? I challenge you to do a random act of kindness that will bless somebody else and demonstrate your worship to God.